know. It's your boy Dabrand knows, and we back with another one. You know how we like to get very informative and all that. You know how we like to put y'all up on what's really going on and all that. Cause we know how y'all like to just listen to what the next nigga stay and run with that and all that. You know what I mean? So let's get into a couple of stories to see if I can enlighten you on what's really going on. Yeah, because once your eyes open, that's exactly how you feel. But until you open your eyes.
In your face, sucker!
Don't ask me why. But every time I go to the motherfucking bank.
Access granted.
Now you try.
Access denied.
Need I say more? Play with your boy.
It's cozy.
It's cozy. Now you know in this show we get deep. Nah, man, deeper than that. Just a little bit deeper than that even. Alright, that's pretty deep, man, you know what I mean? So if you ready to get that deep, here we go. Now that you know that your boy the HG and Brando knows, I'm about to go ahead and start my show, you heard? And there's a particular way I like to do that nowadays. So let's get into it.
Degree to which parasitic people believe they can continue to get away with their dark parasitic antics. What if on some level the human populace's degree of compliance with celebrities being weird is correlated to how dark and weird these parasitic people continue to be? Jesters were actually used for psychological warfare. According to Wikipedia, the jesters would ride in front of troops to mock and distract the enemy. Jesters are tools, barometers, for measuring public opinion and outrage. If a jester puts out disturbing words, and there is no public outcry, this signals to the monarchy that the public is indeed tolerant of disgusting behavior. Now, in archetypal context, the jester is seen as a warped reflection of the king. You'll notice his hat mimics the royal crown, and his scepter mirrors the scepter of the monarch. He is simply an archetypal outlet for the monarch to tell the public the truth about what the monarch really is. And have you noticed that Hollywood comedians are often overly perverse?
His entire job consisted of saying, "Take a look at this," which is what he used to say to Mary-Kate Olsen in her dressing room. Bob.
What if they are there to test the waters? How disturbing can these actors bend reality into being, to warp the minds of the populace to think that disturbing words are normal? But the wild thing about humans today is many people still think actors are just actors. They believe the idea that actors are contributing some sort of message to humankind, which is what actors were originally intended to do, is crazy. 15 years ago, Little Love, when Epstein Island was in operation, we had these celebrities tweeting extremely dark tweets. Most people just wanted to laugh and close their eyes. When people wish to be complacent, dissociated from the evils in front of them, this just symbolizes to the monarchy a degree of public consent. And keep in mind, Cutie Pie, that jesters can actually come in political form too.
Epstein was cool. There, I said it. Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile.
Pedo thing, it's like, they're really pedophilia.
As long as they're funny and entertaining and a little bit obscure, they could always be a jester. I know what you're thinking. Could I be a jester too? Of course I could be. You should be weary of me and anyone you see on a screen, because that means you're thinking.
I know that's right. Now, that jester framework is really interesting. Not because you have to agree with it, but because it gives you a lens. Historically, jesters push boundaries through humor. I had to do some research on what jesters was this morning. They said the outrageous things others couldn't say. They're the modern day comedians, I guess. Now, translate that to modern celebrity culture, shock content, edgy commentary, outrage cycles, viral attention, all that wrapped up. Whether intentional or not, celebrities often end up testing public tolerance levels. And here's the key transition. If cultural boundaries are being stretched at the top, what happens when political messaging gets layered into entertainment? Which brings us to here.
Sure, I can explain it again. So I was told that no one is illegal on a stolen land. In this case, the U.S. And I would like to live in the U.S. So I'm basically calling to make sure that when I cross the border, I don't get in trouble. Billie Eilish told me I could. Billie Eilish? I understand. I looked her up, actually. She lives in a mansion that she owns in Glendale, California. So I figured if I can cross the border, I can get to her mansion and settle there for a while, at least until I get on my feet. Because the mansion itself is on a stolen land, and she said no one is illegal on it. Well, that's a good point. I can't get in because she has a wall around her mansion. Wait, a wall to keep people out of her stolen land. But she said no one is illegal on it. Well, I'm sorry for wasting your time. I think I just handed my brain to an out-of-touch retard. Yes, a lot of those in Hollywood.
Satire hits differently. Definitely hits differently, man, because it forces logic to do just that. Be broadcasted right there for everybody to see. He took a slogan, applied it literally, and showed where theory and reality collide. I'm so happy he did this. This is why celebrity messaging creates backlash, because audiences aren't just consuming emotion, they're evaluating consistency. And once hypocrisy enters the conversation, the internet, they don't let go. Which leads us directly to...
No one is illegal on stolen land.
They're all clapping, but I don't think a single person in that room could explain what that phrase even means. Like, if you actually think the land is stolen, why are you still here trespassing? Why would you want millions more people to come and live on the stolen land? I mean, if you think no one's illegal, why stop at immigration? Why not advocate for the abolition of all laws and all private land ownership? I mean, taking this position seriously would mean Billie Eilish would have to give up her gated multi-million-dollar mansion and live in the crime-filled anarchist dystopia with the rest of us plebeians. None of the people advocating for open borders actually want to live in a country without laws. I mean, leftists love laws. They are constantly advocating for more government overreach into our lives. This woke argument, as per usual, comes from two distinct groups of people. First, there are people who are completely uninformed about history and believe that America is the first and only country to be created through force. They ignore that tribes fought over land for centuries before America was even created. And you know those Islamic dictatorships they love to defend? Yeah, those were built on colonialism too. They just ended in theocracy. Second group is made of people who know that America needs borders to keep out people who want to cause harm. But they don't care that America would turn into into a dangerous hellscape without borders because they don't think it would impact them. They don't care if life becomes more dangerous for everyone else because they live in gated communities where they think that they'll be shielded from the negative impact. But if there's one thing these two groups have in common, whether the people are ignorant or malicious, they believe America is morally inferior to basically every country in the world. They believe that either everyone coming into America is morally superior than the people who live here, or they believe that America deserves to be destroyed. And neither of these positions are true. America was the first country in the world built on the explicit intention of preserving rights. And while we've never been perfect at that, we've always moved in that direction. And the reality is the country that wants to create a safe society where people are free to live their lives is a country that has laws and borders. Because while we need to recognize that there are a lot of wonderful people that want to come into the country and should be let in, there are also bad people who want to hurt us, and those people shouldn't be let in, and this shouldn't be controversial to say. Advocating for open borders isn't misguided empathy or misplaced good intentions like I've seen so many people saying. Pushing the idea is reckless and dangerous and destructive to what America is. So we need to call out people like Billie Eilish who are using their massive platforms to push statements like this because it's ridiculous.
Woo! Now, this clip represents the emotional response side of the audience right here, man. People aren't just debating policy, right? They're reacting to perceived double standards. Security versus open messaging, right? Public property versus public rhetoric. Privilege versus activism. Right or wrong, that tension drives engagement. It fuels comment sections. Trust me, I know. It fuels sharing. But let's go deeper, beyond emotional reaction.
No one is illegal on stolen land.
Okay, it's stolen land. Who should we give it back to? The Tongva, who lived in LA before we did? Or the Hokan peoples they conquered? How about whoever came before them? You know what? Let's just cut out the middlemen and give it to Adam and Eve. Look, emotionally, I get where Billy's coming from. There have been abuses of power by ICE. But errors in enforcing the law don't mean we don't enforce a law. It means we enforce it humanely and by punishing employers who hire illegally. That's why people came here in the first place. But look, politics aside, the history of humanity is violent. Men with spears took land from men with rocks. Men with guns took it from them both. It's a cycle that we need to stop. But if land has been stolen in the past, the answer is to fix the future, not adopt policies that self-destruct the country that's here now. Because America is not just a piece of land. It's a community. A community that built roads, rails, and running water so hundreds of millions of people can thrive, not just hundreds of thousands. A community of revolutionaries whose constitution inspired other countries. And here's the thing about communities. The healthy ones have strong boundaries, because no boundaries means no one builds. Would Billie invest in her home if anyone could walk in and live there? Would the Grammys be worth attending if anyone could show up? Would anyone build anything worth entering if they didn't have a say on who entered it? That's why private property exists. That's why the Grammys have security. That's why Billie's home has gates. The things we value have boundaries. And we should value America. But okay, I mean, they're already here. Why not just let them stay? Because the only difference between them and millions of people waiting to come here legally is that they were willing to cut the line. Because we gave amnesty to 3 million people in 1986, and now we have tens of millions more. Because when you watch people cut the line, you stop believing in the line and stop trusting the people running it. I mean, why should you even pay taxes if they get access? Why follow the rules if breaking them is rewarded? Now, does that mean we should do anything we want to people who are here illegally? No. They're humans and they must be treated humanely. But they aren't entitled to be here. America has its sins, but we can't get to the future if we're constantly beating ourselves up over the past. Because if you're driving forward while looking behind you, eventually you're going to crash. So let's be aware of our sins, but focused on our wins.
Now,
if you'd like to support unapologetic truth-telling, become a paid subscriber on Substack. Even if you don't follow my work there, it's the best way to support the mission.
Definitely support y'all. Now we move into the intellectual layer. This is where discussion shifts from outrage to philosophy, history, conquest cycles, civilization building, practical governance. The point isn't agreement. It's complexity. Real world issues rarely fit into slogan sized answers. And when celebrities reduce them to slogans, audiences push back with layered arguments like this. But then you get the opposite extreme. Yeah, I got to get my play button working better than that. I'm trying some new buttons on my stream deck. Anywho, here we go.
I'm about to address the oldest motherfucking demon in the books. I'm tired of hearing this shit. I opened up the motherfucking social media this morning, and the first thing I see is how can people that live on stolen land be upset about immigration? Here's the thing. When you go to war, you have a winner and you have a fucking loser. Everybody always wants to complain about the losers. You lost. Shut the fuck up. If you were the winner, you would have all of Texas. The Indians would still be running shit. They are not because they lost. You lost in a game of warfare, just like Hitler lost. You want to glorify it for the Jews and make it all pretty because everybody came in and beat Hitler in war, and what happened? Hitler and all his shit was dismantled. They were declared the losers. They were conquered. When Alexander the Great walked around and conquered all of Europe, he didn't steal the land, he conquered it. Do not get mad or upset. Buck your feelings, you got conquered. That's simple. The Mexicans lost to the white people. The Indians lost to the white people. The niggas was controlled by white people. You lost in war. It's that simple. There is no changing the narrative. There is no fixing it. It is exactly as it is. So stop all the they stole this or they stole that. They were better at it. You're just mad because white people figured out how to weaponize gunpowder before anybody else, and they took that shit and ran with it. If you don't like it, fuck your feelings. Facts are facts.
Blunt, wrong, unfiltered. I probably shouldn't be yelling like that in this apartment right now. Whew, it's way too early. Anyhow, this is the other side of digital discourse. No nuance, just conviction. And whether a view is supported or rejected, strong language it always spikes engagement metrics. Because, intensity drives reaction. Reaction drives algorithm momentum. Now, I want you to watch how quickly the conversation pivots from ideology into Hollywood narrative speculation. Why Denzel ignore Jay-Z? All right, so we got this popping up. It says, it all makes sense now why Denzel Washington ignored Jay-Z. This is where the internet storytelling kicks in. A crop clip, a dramatic caption, cultural scandal backdrop. Suddenly, somewhat of a normal moment becomes evidence. Now, I ain't sitting here advocating, saying he innocent or not, but this doesn't mean the narrative is true, but it shows how fast perception forms. And perception spreads faster than verification, I can tell you that. Which sets up for the next escalation. Boom! Beyonce. Here we see rumor economics in motion. Big names, big scandals, big numbers. Even when claims aren't substantiated, attention still follows. This says Beyonce has lost 10 million followers after Jay-Z was mentioned in the Epstein files. Y'all know attention is the online currency. Clicks, views, engagement, reach. Truth and virality don't always travel together, but virality almost always wins the race. Which leads us to the final perspective.
Well, I know her agents are going out of their minds. I mean, it's the first lesson 101 for celebrity. As you rise up, whether you're a film star, music star, whatever, shut your mouth and just entertain.
Mr. Wonderful, great to have you on this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll see if any good does come of this. Maybe the Tonga
Take
tribe
care.
will get a nice house with a swimming pool. We'll see. Thank you.
Now, this clip represents a long-standing debate. Should entertainers stay entertainers, or is cultural influence inseparable from politics once you reach global platforms? Now, there's no universal answer, but the reaction cycle is predictable. Celebrity speaks, audience divides, media amplifies, internet escalates, and we repeat. When you line all these clips together, this isn't really about one speech or one rumor or one reaction. It's about influence. Who shapes narratives, who challenges them, who spreads them, and how quickly perception becomes reality online. Hollywood doesn't just produce entertainment anymore. It produces signals. And the public decides whether to accept, reject, or dissect them all. I like the way I was able to make that rhyme. And right now, people are dissecting everything. So, y'all know this week we've been all about patterns. That's what we're going to continue to follow, just patterns this week. And so if you made it to the end of the video, look, it's too early. It's way too early in the morning right now for me to try to sit here and come up. So just write pattern if you made it to the end of the video, because I'm about to go take a nap so I can wake up and come right back. I love what I do. Y'all be safe. Go check on a friend today. You can quite literally be saving their life. Peace.
When it's time for Lefties Losing It, and we've seen some astonishing stuff in this segment. We've heard from liars, gaslighters, the deluded, the deranged, and the dull-witted. And I'm about to play you a clip that brings a lot of those elements together. Here is CNN's Abby Phillip talking to former MSNBC anchor and conspiracy theorist Joy Reid. The projection here is incredible.
Conservatives are living in a completely different information world than liberals. And breaking that down needs to be done. Because when you don't ever even hear the facts, it's hard to even know that you're wrong. And that happens a lot.
Wow. Just wow. First, she says facts. She means her demented opinions, not actual facts. And a reminder, she's been wrong on just about every consequential issue in recent years, along with Joy Reid, whose podcast she seems to be appearing on. Joy Reid, not too long ago, was pushing conspiracy theories about Donald Trump not really being hit with a bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania. She's as loopy as they come. But she's on the same side as self-delighted, self-aggrandizer Abby.
Half my job sometimes is knowing what the latest conspiracy is, so that if it comes up, I'm ready to address it. Because it happens a lot where people don't even know that what they're saying or what they've seen and believe is not true. And so that happens a lot, and I don't come away from that saying, what's the point of this? People are just saying false things. I think that one time that person brings up something that is debunked and false, and I debunk it at the table, might be the very first time that someone out there has heard an alternative point of view.
Yes, we Conservatives really need Abby Phillip, the hopelessly biased, hopelessly wrong Abby Phillip, to debunk lies for us. Let's have a look at her recent form.
It's clear as day. The FBI put out statistics. Crime is going down. You don't have to twist the facts.
The FBI quietly comes out with this new data that shows actually violent crime is up 4.5% during that time frame.
The only person making an accusation that people are not getting what they've asked for is Trump, falsely claiming that the administration is withholding resources because of political affiliation. That is just not true.
Well, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is facing major backlash after confirming reports that a supervisor ordered disaster relief workers to avoid homes with Trump yard signs.
There's actually not any evidence linking any of Hunter Biden's wrongdoings to Joe Biden. You are incorrect. You think that Biden would actually pardon Hunter Biden, despite him saying pretty...
Yes, as a father, he would.
No.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Breaking news. President Biden has just pardoned his son.
There's so much more, and thanks to Maze Moore for that great compilation. Now to another CNN simpleton, Brian Stelter, who has launched a spirited defence of the BBC after the British broadcaster aired deceptively and deliberately doctored footage of President Trump's January 6th speech. Stelter is writing articles and a slew of typically stupid tweets claiming things like the BBC is feeling the Trump squeeze. It's a move we have seen several times this year against vulnerable media companies. The BBC is not vulnerable. It's a taxpayer-funded Goliath. It's funded by a mandatory licence fee paid by households, and it receives close to £4 billion per annum. But those sort of facts are clearly beyond Brian. Joining me now is filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, more on the BBC scandal that has seen the resignation of the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, and Head of News, Deborah Turness, after the taxpayer-funded broadcaster aired deliberately and dishonestly doctored footage of Donald Trump's January 6th speech. But despite the BBC's history of institutional bias, the British left is circling the wagons as Donald Trump demands accountability. Let's hear from Tim Davie.
We have to be very clear and stand up for our journalism. We are a unique and precious organisation. And I see the free press, I see the weapon under pressure, I see the weaponisation. I think we've got to fight for our journalism. I'm really proud of our work, and the amazing work locally, globally that we're doing is utterly precious.
Unique and precious, really. Let's hear from Liberal Democrat MP Munira Wilson, who is terrified by the prospect of what she calls the Trumpification of our politics and media. Get ready to lose some brain cells.
When Donald Trump got involved and called the BBC corrupt, that we've had these two resignations overnight, and we've now had his press secretary claiming this as a victory for Trump. Now, the BBC belongs to Britain, and I think we should all be concerned whether it's foreign powers or indeed domestic powers, and we know that there are the likes of Farage and Reform who would love to see the BBC destroyed. That really worries me, because we cannot see the Trumpification of our politics and our media landscape. We've seen what that's done in America. So this is a moment for the BBC to reset and restore trust.
Ami, they really are terrified of any sort of accountability. Let's not forget the BBC is taxpayer funded. Brits are obliged to pay for this leftist activist machine.
Yeah, what a grift. They pay $20 US a month for the BBC. That's more than Netflix. Okay, I don't know what that comes out to in Australian dollars, like $1,000. I can't do the math in my head. But very interestingly,
not quite.
Okay, but very interestingly, if you're blind, you get a 50% discount. I'm not joking. And if you have a black and white television, you get a 66% discount. So go figure. There are deals to be had at the BBC. Oh, God. Look, the truth is I learned so much from the BBC. For example, did you know that male breast milk is just as nutritious as female breast milk? I bet you didn't know that, yes, because they have so much invested in men being women. They did a story on how if you pump a man with enough hormones, he will secrete milk. Oh, God. I want to poke my mind's eye out. My God. I'm sorry, I couldn't finish that. No, they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. And it's always so funny to me when my liberal friends here, they always go, oh, American news is such BS, CNN and Fox News, such garbage. I listen to the BBC. Oh, my God, the effect reaction, it's so gross. No, the BBC is awful. Let's not forget that during the Gaza conflict, they did a documentary on Gaza, and the narrator of this documentary was the son of a Hamas minister. Look, they're awful, obviously, and there's no wonder that GB News, which is the center-right, the right outlet there, is eating their lunch. They are now, for 4 months in a row, the #1 news channel in England. It's no wonder. They failed all across the board.
Well, that's extraordinary. I didn't know that because GB News, their resources are tiny compared to the BBC, and every household with a television is obliged to give them money, as you explained. Now, Nigel Farage, whose Reform Party is leading the polls, was also asked about Donald Trump putting pressure on the BBC. This was his response.
What do you make of President Trump weighing into the conversation about the BBC and the British media landscape? Do you welcome that, or does that concern you?
Well, if I was the President of the United States of America, if I was the person making sure that the United Kingdom had security guarantees that meant that it could be defended, whereas on its own it would be helpless, and I'd been stitched up on the eve of a national election. I mean, people talk about election interference. What the BBC did was election interference. If you put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes, I think you'll understand why, when I had a chat with him on Friday, he made his feelings on the subject known to me in no uncertain terms and not in a quotable form.
I really do want to know what he said precisely, but the British media army, the left, will try to use this to damage Nigel Farage, given the relentless negative media Donald Trump receives in Britain. They believe they can hurt Farage because of his closeness to the president. But it hasn't hurt him yet. Look at this. Reform, as you can see, is well ahead of Labor and the Tories. That could be the next British Prime Minister. But there is just this, as you touched on, this preoccupation with just how terrible politics and the media is in the US and how much more free and rational they are in the UK, as they're arresting grandmothers for tweeting memes.
Yeah, get ready to say Prime Minister Farage. The Conservative Party, whose lunch he's eating, is not the party of Margaret Thatcher. That's for sure. As the great poet philosopher Monty Python says, it has ceased to be. The Conservative Party has been hemorrhaging voters and votes. In May they had a local election and they were trounced by the Reform Party, and there's a sort of an exit of a Brexit, if you will, of Conservative members going toward the Reform Party. The Conservative Party had 16 local councils defend. They lost 16 out of 16. That's just not going to do it. And if you look at what the polls are saying in terms of what British voters want, well, far and away, the number one issue is immigration. And that's where the Reform Party shines. The Conservative Party has been echoing much of the sentiment of the Labour Party, frankly, when it comes to immigration. The number two issue is the NHS, the National Health Service. That's a total tire fire, and a tire fire not only under the Labour Party, but also under the Conservative Party. What you have to understand, certainly for our American viewers, is that the politics in England is different than the American political process, and same with you guys. Is that in their process, like the Conservative Party is more like the middle of the road Democrats, and the Labour Party are more like, the Squad. They're really become far left, and it's just not getting done. And now the Conservative Party is kind of getting hip to that, and they're trying to out Catholic the Pope, and they have a new leader, and she's trying to out-reform the Reform Party, but the polls are showing the voters aren't buying it. So, yeah, it's a fascinating mix of what's going on there.
They've been burnt too many times, the Brits. The Tories say all the right things, kind of like those rhinos, say all the right things before an election, and then they get into power and they govern like they're from the left. And now that there is a reform option, as you saw in the polling, they're getting a lot of support. Now, Army, we will get to the Jeffrey Epstein saga, but first I want to play you a clip from a drag queen named Ariel who explains her devotion to the New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani.
It gives me, maybe for the first time in my life in American politics, a real sense of hope. The Mayor of New York City is Zoran Mamdani! To actually have have a politician that I really believe in and that I feel like really stands up for the people I care about most, from Palestinians to trans people to Jews to just my neighbors all around Crown Heights where I live, who live in rent-stabilized apartments, the working families of New York. To actually have a politician who's truly standing with them, who has policies and plans.
There you go. He really cares about Muslims, the trans community, Jews. You're a Jewish New Yorker. Do you agree with Ariel there? Is Dabrand committed to make your life better?
A Muslim, a trans, and a Jew walk into a bar. That's a party. Look, she was very sweet. I'm a sucker for a crying lady. What can I tell you? Okay, what was your question again? Do I feel safer as a Jew with Mamdani? Yeah, I'm going to go with no on that. I'm going to go with no. You know, it's so, and I've mentioned this before, and it bears repeating, right? So when you go to a synagogue here in New York and other cities in America, but I'll speak about New York, there's security threats. We have to pay for security to stand in front of our synagogue. And during Bloomberg, what Bloomberg would do is he gave us police officers. The police officer would go to, and they would station a squad car outside of every major synagogue in New York. And then during Bolshevik Bill de Blasio, he took that away. He said no more police officers in front of synagogues. And then when Eric Adams came, he put them back. I guarantee you, there'll be no police cars in front of synagogues under the Mamdani regime. And put aside all the Jewish issues, Rita, let's play a game. You like games? I love games. Let's play a game called Did He Say These Words, okay? Did Mamdani say the words, violence is an artificial construction? Yes, he did. When asked about prisons, he said, did he say, what purpose do they serve? Yes, he did. He's a madman. He is going to destroy New York City. So I don't feel safe here as a Jew. I don't feel safe here as a New Yorker. No American will feel safe in the new New York City made under the model of Zohran Mamdani.
Well, you're going to have a lot of sort of social workers doing group hugs with everybody. So maybe not as many police officers, but there'll be some alternative that I'm sure will work beautifully. Now, let's get to the latest revelations about disgraced financier, sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Let's start with these emails between discredited author Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein, who was a friend of his, where he told the pedophile that he could be the bullet to end Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. Wolff told Epstein in an email, you can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Oh, what a slimy character. Army, I just want to go to the biggest revelation, what was the headline news earlier today and what much of the media focused on. And sadly, many people don't look beyond the headline. The headlines read, Trump spent hours at Epstein's house with victim of sex trafficking, email alleges. But Army, the victim, who was referred to as simply Victim 1, with the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee deliberately withholding her name, well, the name has now been revealed, and it is the late Virginia Giuffre, who has said before her death repeatedly, including earlier this year, that she witnessed no wrongdoing from Donald Trump during their interactions. So to ask you a very lengthy question, are today's revelations another nothing burger, or is there something there that concerns you?
Oh, God, I hate that term, nothing burger. Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein, two incredibly credible people, two upstanding pillars of society.
Two upstanding pillars of society.
To answer your question, I sat and combed through all those emails. It took me 20 seconds. There were 3 emails. Each one was like 2 sentences long, okay? Did I miss something? We read them. I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know what the issue. He spent hours there. You know how long hours is? Hours is like going to like an event for a couple. What is days is something. Hours. And then the other email that the smoking gun that the media is talking about is he knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop. I mean, I don't know. He asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop. I just don't see where the smoking gun is. I don't see the issue. I think actually the more fascinating part of this whole Epstein saga is how the hard right is dealing with this, right? So you have Marjorie Taylor Greene strutting her stuff in the left-wing media, and she's being hailed, right? The View loves her all of a sudden. And she's using this to weaponize against Donald Trump. Like, she's so gross. She really is gross. She's embodying this horseshoe theory of politics, right? Right there on The View. And it's really gross. But even more gross is people like her and her ilk using the anti-Semitism is all streaming out of them, right? Where they're all the claims unsubstantiated with zero evidence. The Mossad is involved in this. Look, the whole thing is just gross. Kash Patel is a good guy. And I think if there's something there, it'd be released. There's just nothing there, but they will not let this thing go.
Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time. Joining me now is veteran broadcaster Dee Dunleavy. Now, we love a good apology, Dee, a genuine apology when someone has actually done something wrong. And Piers Morgan delivered a heartfelt apology to tennis legend Novak Djokovic for the absurd attacks he launched because Novak refused to submit to the COVID shot.
You got thrown out of Australia over what seemed to be, on the face of it, from what the media were being told and what was being reported, was you trying to bend the rules of getting into play an Australian Open without having taken the COVID vaccine. And I was actually quite censorious about a lot of people at the time. And I've since apologized to some people. I was too censorious. And when more information emerged about your situation, the fact you'd had COVID several weeks before you went to Australia, the fact that you hadn't actually done anything wrong on the form filling, the fact that in the end it became a political decision to throw you out based on likely public anger if they didn't take action. When I look back on that and reflect on that, I would like to say I'm sorry for the intemperate language I used against you, because I didn't know you. I took what I was reading and hearing at face value. It turned out to be more complicated.
Dee, there are plenty of media pundits in this country who need to be lining up to apologise to Novak as well. I've got to say, I'm not one of them. I was one of the few voices defending him at that time, but some of the coverage he received was just unhinged. He was called the most hated man in Australia at one point.
Well, I'm filled with shame right now, and I hats off to Piers Morgan. I'm absolutely with him, but I, as you know, because you were on my show, I hosted a radio show at the time and I joined the pylon. Look, for me, it wasn't so much about hating Novak Djokovic or necessarily wanting a needle jabbed in his arm. It was more about the fact that we didn't want him to be seen to be getting special treatment when the rest of us were going through hell. And I remember you and I discussing this, and I do remember the first time sort of COVID came up in the news and you saying, look, we're all going to get it. Let's just get it and get on with our lives. And I remember looking at you and thinking, Rita's lost her mind. But, you know, you were proven to be right. And the reason I feel filled with shame is because we were, as broadcasters, as media figures, we were encouraged to get people to, you know, encourage them to get the jab because that's what we were being told. Get to 90%, 98%, whatever it was, and they'll let us out of our homes. We can return to our normal lives. And so, you know, I joined in. I thought I was doing the right thing, but looking back, you know, I wish I had my time again. I did question it at the time, but I wish that I'd pushed harder.
You were nowhere near the people I was thinking of when I made that statement. I do remember those discussions, but you weren't launching into these ugly attacks against Novak. You just thought you didn't want any sort of special treatment for a celebrity and millionaire. So I think your apology that is not all that necessary. Now, talking about apologies, let's discuss the ongoing feud between David and Victoria Beckham and their son Brooklyn and his wife Nicola. A source has told the Daily Mail that Brooklyn would only accept something that is considered a substantive and public apology from his parents before reconciling with them. Didi, what's going on here?
Well, look, I can understand him standing by his wife. This all goes back to their wedding when he's taken on his wife's name. It's Peltz Beckham now for him. They felt, or the couple, Nicola and Brooklyn, felt that David and Victoria were planting stories in the press around them, which is, look, it is conceivable because the two of them do have a hotline to the media. But I don't know whether that was founded. It may have been happening through an agent of Victoria and David. But I don't think you can tell Posh and Bex what to do. And I also don't think you will ever win a PR war against this couple. They seem to go from strength to strength. He's just been knighted. She's got a really successful, well, I loved it anyway, series on Netflix. And I don't think you can tell them what to do. I do have a feeling, though, that Victoria, if anyone can fix it, Victoria can. She's very strong, very family-oriented. I think that she will be able to broker some sort of a peace deal, but I think it will take more time.
Now, Insider has told Page 6 that Meghan Markle was apparently in networking mode at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party. There were a lot of A-listers there, including Mariah Carey, Justin Bieber, Hailey Bieber, Oprah Winfrey, Gayle King. And Didi, the source said Meghan was schmoozing with a lot of power players. How do you see that? Because she's copping some criticism for not wearing a Remembrance Day poppy. We covered that story first year on Monday. And it was so glaringly obvious because Harry was wearing a poppy, and obviously the day holds a lot of significance for him.
Well, definitely. And her excuse was incredibly lame. She said that she couldn't get one. Look, you can order them on Amazon. Cost you about $5 or something, and it'll be there the same day. Look, the grifter was hustling. Are we surprised? I don't think we are at all. I find their appearance at this party, look, not surprising because, you know, she could not be happier. This is her happy place. She's found her people. She's wallowing in this pit of narcissistic, self-loving people. But what about the irony here? So Harry and Meghan detest the intrusion of the press. They absolutely hated that. Get away from us. We're terrified of the paparazzi. And yet here they are, metaphorically in bed with a family who have made and built their entire empire on sharing every little detail of their lives, who have the paparazzi on speed dial. So which one is it, Harry and Meghan? These two are so insincere. And I'm not surprised by their presence there. She's just doing anything she can to grasp at keeping herself in the headlines.
Now, before you go, queer characters have been slashed from TV shows amid a massive U-turn on woke DEI policies and initiatives in the US, with Deadline reporting that around 41% of the 489 LGBTQ characters that were on the small screen this year, well, they won't be returning, with further cancellations also likely. Dina, is this a case of the market speaking? Are viewers just sick of the overrepresentation?
Absolutely, and these networks should have seen this coming. I mean, it was one of the major pillars of Donald Trump's election campaign, was getting rid of all this DEI and all this woke rubbish. And some of these programs, they just make you feel uncomfortable in your own living room, and we don't want that. We just want to be entertained. And if you feel as though you're being given a lecture rather than being able to just relax and enjoy a story unfolding, you know, you can hear them scratching and ticking the DEI boxes in the background. We don't want that, and that's not what people wanted. It's not what the people of America voted for. And the ratings have shown that those shows had to go.
Yeah, it's the box ticking. It's just when it's absolutely unnecessary, and you can almost see they're putting together a production by just ticking boxes. Didi Dunleavy, always a pleasure. And it's time for Lefties Losing It. The fake news media is really hitting new lows. So eager to restart their debunked Russian conspiracy theories that they somehow managed to mix up this man, Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, with this dude, Vladimir Putin. Easy mistake to make if you've lost all reasoning, any semblance of objectivity when you are an activist journalist for MSNBC. Here are some of the corrections.
Last night, The Last Word reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network in which she said Trump was good friends with the world leader. Now, we said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview was subsequently released, and it showed that Gabbard was referring to Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
Wait. So Tulsi Gabbard mentions that Trump is good friends with the world leader, and they not only just assumed she's talking about Vladimir Putin, but then they report that as if it were fact on television. That's what happened. Let's hear one more correction from MSNBC on that issue.
Last night, we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi. Clear that up.
Now let's check in with the worst vice presidential candidate we have seen, the uniquely awful Tim Walz, Tampon Tim. Remember him? He had all sorts of delusions of being vice president. Now he has delusions of being a presidential candidate, and he thinks he's a tough guy. Here he responds to media pundits who mocked his lack of masculinity.
How do you fight it?
This notion
I think I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they want to do it. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
Good luck with that, Tim. I think Judge Janine has you covered. Here, Tampon explains that Republican men are scared of his masculinity.
I think some of us scare them. I think I scare them a little bit why they spend so much time on it. No, I'm serious, because I can fix a truck. They know I'm not.
But when he's not threatening to kick ass or brag about his truck, he is cheering on the damage caused to an American manufacturer that employs tens of thousands of Americans on good wages, a company that chooses to manufacture cars in the US. Tim Walz is happy that this company is being attacked and its stock price is falling. This is disqualifying, folks, even more disqualifying than putting tampons in boys' bathrooms.
That little stock app, I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So.
To The View now, and here Whoopi Goldberg scares the already disturbingly dumb audience by suggesting that Donald Trump will deport American citizens.
Keep your eyes open, y'all, because if they can just come up and take somebody because they've made a decision that you are supposed to be that person, any one of us could find ourselves being deported to some country.
Don't give them any ideas, girl.
Don't give them any ideas, girl. You heard Anna Navarro say that. And talking about Anna, look how miserable she is here as fellow CNN panelist states some facts and figures about Trump's popularity.
NBC News on Meet the Press, they reported their polling found the highest level of enthusiasm and the country going in the right direction since 2004. 20 years.
Yes, stating facts and figures can be triggering for the left. Watch here as another panelist on CNN claims that the data is all wrong because people in the street said so.
You do know what you're saying is incorrect. I don't care about the polling.
Talk to NBC.
The American, I don't care what NBC is saying. I can talk to the people on the streets. Are you on the streets? Are you talking to people?
Now to lefty Jon Stewart. Here's some wise words of advice for the Democrats whose approval rating has plummeted to under 30%.
You're at 27%. You've got to get Trump to lose 8 points of popularity just for you to get to the point where you're 13 points below him. Your approval is only 7 points above, where it turns red and goes into low power mode.
Yep, things must be grim if even Jon Stewart is mocking the Democrats.
Maybe you're not a numbers learner. Maybe a visual demonstration of where you're here. Let me meet you where you live. All right, here we go. I'm going to do this. This is 48% approval. This is them. This is you. This is you. 27%. This is them. Oh, I see. They're much higher. Yes, they're much higher.
Now, former First Lady Michelle Obama is often spoken about as a future presidential candidate. The Democrats are so desperate for any popular figure to take over the party, but how popular is she? Michelle Obama has launched a new advice podcast, IMO, to much fanfare. It's a podcast co-hosted with her brother, Craig Robinson.
You know, speaking at leadership conferences, things you do as a coach, you realize that what we have, even in our lack of resources, you know, in our household growing up.
Just scintillating stuff, folks. And the audience numbers, I've got to say, are not great. The latest edition on YouTube features Hollywood star Seth Rogen, but it's just got 6,500 views in 13 hours. Not even that, 6,400. Now, I don't want to brag about my Lefties video, but the one from just last night's program is already sitting on 894,000 in 16 hours. Well over 1 million by now, but then again, Lefties losing it is pretty awesome. Joining me now is journalist and author Batia Ungasagon. Batia, what did you make of Michelle Obama's latest project? Is it relatable? Is it likeable? Useful?
So I wrote a column about it for Unheard, and then somebody wrote to me in the comments, oh, you're the person who listened to the podcast. You're absolutely right that it does not seem to have found an audience. And the reason for that is because the same thing that ails the Democratic Party in general ails this podcast. It's for and by rich women. And it's so amazing that this has not seeped in, that the Democrats have such a problem with men and such a problem with the working class. And yet Michelle Obama's podcast, her guests are all other unbelievably wealthy people like her. And I mean, they just don't have the problems that the average American needs advice on, because these people are all gazillionaires. And what's amazing and really offensive about this to me, Rita, is that Michelle Obama grew up working class. She grew up in a Black working class household, and we know that Black Americans struggle to make it into the middle class. Even Black men who are born wealthy, more often than not, find their way into the lower classes and end up poor. This is absolutely devastating. And Michelle Obama and her brother Craig Robinson have the answers to how to solve this problem. They grew up working class and they are both millionaires. And yet, Rita, they are gatekeeping the secrets that so many Americans are desperate to hear. And instead, they sit around with their wealthy friends and talk about things like when to end a friendship. And I find that a little bit offensive.
Absolutely. And the Democrats have become, as one very astute judge said, a party for weak men and miserable women. And it does seem to be what's ruining the party right now and making it unelectable. And when it comes to Michelle Obama, do you see her as a future politician, perhaps even a presidential candidate? She's always spoken about in those terms, her popularity, her appeal to female voters. But I wonder whether all of that is wildly overstated.
I think it is. First of all, reportedly, she hates politics. And so I would be very surprised if she found her way into politics on a personal level. But also, Rita, she seems very consumed by grievance culture. Her speech at the DNC this year was really shocking. I mean, it was about the myth of the persistence of racism and how hard it is to be a person of color in America. She's worth $70 million. I mean, she's sort of the proof positive that this is sort of nonsense. And I feel that that is very out of touch with where most Americans are at. And I'm not just talking about white Americans. I think Black Americans are sort of sick of this message as well, which is why you saw a lot of movement towards the GOP. 25% of Black men voted for Donald Trump, and his approval ratings right now with Black Americans are very, very high. So I think she's quite out of step with where the nation is, although the Democratic Party, again, does not seem to have realized that.
Now, Batia, you were on Bill Maher's program and your clips went viral very quickly, millions and millions of views. And I've got to say, you managed to make Bill look a little bit silly on his own program.
We're approaching 2 months in. I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut, look me in the eye and tell me you don't, that this is really going badly and I shouldn't have thrown my lot in with this team.
Oh, no, I feel the opposite.
All right. Tell me why.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, tell me why.
No, I feel so proud of, I mean, I was never a Republican or a conservative. I was a leftist, and I am still a leftist. I'm just a MAGA leftist now because...
That makes no sense.
But tell me how you are, why you're so happy with how things are going, and explain to my audience, what is a MAGA leftist?
I'm happy because I feel like Donald Trump wakes up every morning and thinks, how can I make America better? How can I keep a campaign promise that I made? How can I do exactly what I promised my supporters I was going to do? We've never, ever, ever seen efficiency like this. We've never, ever, ever seen a president who truly wants to deliver exactly what he promised to his supporters and to the country overall. Trump throughout the campaign was saying our success will be our retribution. And that's what we're experiencing right now. This is everything I hoped for and more. And I could not have believed that he would be so successful. So, you know, there was so much that I wanted to answer, Bill. I knew that I only had a few minutes. A MAGA lefty is somebody who has realized that the MAGA tent is big and that this president wants to represent all Americans. At a more fundamental level, Donald Trump is anti-war, he's pro-worker, he believes in a protectionist economy, and he's a social moderate. This was the left's agenda for 100 years. And so I don't see why I shouldn't get to still call myself a lefty just because Donald Trump lifted the best parts of the Democrats' agenda out from under them. They abandoned labor, and he decided to represent labor. They embraced war, and he decided to steal their anti-war platform. They went totally kooky crazy on the lefty stuff, and he said, well, you know what? Looks like the moderate middle is just there for the taking. I'm going to take it. That's where I'm at, and I feel very represented and very happy.
And if more people just looked at the policies and the policy outcomes, the objectives of those policies, they would also identify as you do. But so many are transfixed by Trump and hating Trump that they don't actually look at what the agenda is. And you're right, he has taken a lot of what were traditionally leftist policies, and that is part of Make America Great Again, all about America first. It's all about protecting American workers, starting up American manufacturing again and reinvigorating that. And it's got to say, how divorced from reality are these lefties, even sensible ones like Bill Maher, who think Trump voters are somehow upset by what they're seeing. The polls are showing something entirely different to that. And even the polls that are traditionally favouring the Democrats are showing their approval rating under 30%. But here, I mean, this is just dire straits for the Democrats to have an approval rating in the 20s. How are they going to come back from that?
It's truly amazing. If you think of this split screen, on the one hand, you have a president who is representing the working class, elevating every hardworking American. He's getting us out of wars and bringing peace. And he's bringing common sense, moderate social policy back to the table. And what do the Democrats represent? Well, they represent keeping tren de agua here in America. They represent opposition to deporting rapists who are not citizens. They represent opposition to deporting Hamas supporters who are not citizens. They represent supporting trans women in women's locker rooms and women's sports. And they represent protecting the fraud and abuse of our government. So, of course, their brand is in the toilet. Trump took everything that was good about them, and instead of saying, oh, wow, a president who's actually going to do leftist things, they decided to embrace everything that is just insane and crazy. And they here's the thing, Rita, they turned on their own values and their own voters rather than admit that Donald Trump had a point. And this is truly unforgivable stuff.
Absolutely, and they're being punished for it. Now let's speak quickly about the Russian-Ukraine war. Earlier today, Presidents Trump and Zelensky had an hour-long phone call, and afterwards Zelensky said he thinks lasting peace is achievable this year, and he was full of praise for President Donald Trump. What a difference a couple of weeks makes, Batia. Tell me about how that is being perceived in the US.
I think people feel relieved. President Trump had to speak harshly to Zelensky when he was in the Oval Office. Most Americans approved of what they saw there. We want this war to end. We're finished, supporting foreign wars that have nothing to do with us. We hate the bloodshed. And I think a lot of us feel that we hate that our support was a big function of prolonging this bloodshed. I think President Trump feels that this is a proxy war in which the two superpowers do not want to be at war anymore. And he's desperate to bring this to a close. And I think he's doing a really good job. He has figured out how to play Putin, and he's figured out how to move Zelensky. And so I think that hopefully, please God, we will see movement very, very soon. I think he is very good at manipulating both Putin and our European allies. I think, we've seen European allies coming into the Oval Office and being very deferential. And as an American, you just love to see it. So I'm really hopeful that with God's help, we'll see an end to this very soon.
And he's been very good in getting the Europeans to spend more on their own defence and to start doing some of the heavy lifting, which has been another objective. Before you go, I want to play you just a small part of a speech J.D. Vance gave. He gave a masterclass on the failures of globalisation and how, in the end, it hurts advanced economies.
There were two conceits that our leadership class had when it came to globalization. The first is assuming that we can separate the making of things from the design of things. The idea of globalization was that rich countries would move further up the value chain while the poor countries made the simpler things. Whether we were offshoring factories to cheap labor economies or importing cheap labor through our immigration system, cheap labor became the drug of Western economies. And I'd say that if you look in nearly every country from Canada to the UK that imported large amounts of cheap labor, you've seen productivity stagnate.
And the failures of globalisation are so much behind the Trump phenomenon. And that's, again, something people fail to understand, that people who worked manufacturing jobs used to make decent money, used to be able to provide for their family, have economic security. And we've seen that destroyed in so many Western nations, and it's been deliberate, Batia.
Absolutely. JD's speech is incredible, very much worth watching in full. He really makes a compelling argument there that the cost that we paid for shipping all of these good jobs overseas and then importing a serf caste in here to do the jobs that remained, working class jobs that remained, that the cost to that was not just the dispossession of the American working class, it was also a cost in terms of innovation and in terms of productivity, in terms of what Americans would have innovated if they were still doing these jobs. And that is truly, truly criminal. The disinheritance of America's working class while the elites got rich off of cheap labor. It is the root of the Trump phenomenon. For working class people, immigration and the economy are two sides of the same coin. And this is something that's very hard for elites to understand. And JD laid it out beautifully.
He really is quite exceptional, I've got to say. I was a bit surprised when Donald Trump selected him, but if he's not the 48th president of the United States, I'm going to shave my head live on this show. Batielga Sargon, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Rita. God bless.
This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your company. Well, there were dramatic scenes at the White House today during a meeting between President Donald Trump and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Donald Trump dimmed the lights and played a video showing the president footage from South Africa where leaders had been calling for violence against white South Africans. Now, this, of course, comes after 50 South African refugees were flown to America last week, sending the left-wing media into a meltdown. But this is what unfolded at the White House.
Lights down, turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission.
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning.
So Donald Trump brings the receipts and the left-wing media is once again freaking out about the showdown. Let's look at the coverage. The media's headlines are all pretty much the same. Outlets are simply rolling out the same sort of lines. The Guardian's headline is Trump ambushes South African president with video and false claim of white racism. We've got NPR, Daily News, the New York Times and BBC all describing this as an ambush. And look, I'm not saying that Donald Trump's behaviour is perfect, but he is brilliant at shining a light on issues that parts of the mainstream media do not want to cover. And as for foreign leaders visiting the White House, well, they are being put on notice that Donald Trump is not afraid to call out issues as the cameras are rolling. South Africa's president denies claims of genocide and harassment, but after watching the footage and taking questions from reporters, was forced to admit that he opposes what he saw.
Denounce that type of language in the video that you saw.
Oh yes, we've always done so. As government, as my own party, we are completely opposed to that. We, in 1955, adopted a document which said South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
But why wouldn't you arrest that man? That man said, kill the white farmers, kill the white farmers. And then he danced, and he's dancing, and it's kill the white farmers. I'm not sure, but I think if somebody got up in Parliament and started saying kill a certain group of people, he would be arrested very quickly. That man is going all over South Africa, and that's not a small party. That was a stadium that holds 100,000 people, and I hardly saw an empty seat. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of representation.
It's time for media meltdowns. Well, this week we learned that Joe Biden has stage 4 prostate cancer. And I've said before, I sincerely wish that the former president gets the best treatment available. But right now, serious questions are being raised about when Joe Biden and those closest to him knew. And how is it that someone with the access to the best medical care on the planet, someone who's supposedly the leader of the free world, wasn't given a PSA test? That we're only finding out about this now, that Joe Biden has the most advanced stage of prostate cancer.
It is interesting to note that President Trump's, President Obama's, and President Bush II, in their most recent physicals, in their terms of office, obviously 2025 for President Trump, did comment on their PSA levels. And so they got screened while in office, and they commented on it. It's not easy to access the most recent ones from President Biden.
So George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump all had their PSA prostate tests reported with results when they were president. Yet for some reason, it's a completely different story when it comes to Joe Biden. Well, according to this expert on CBS, Joe Biden didn't really need to get screened for cancer because he was too old.
Normally, doctors will stop screening for prostate cancer at 75 or so because after that, the prostate cancers you typically pick up are very slow growing. And so the harms of all of the testing and treatment for something that may not kill you, you're talking about risk versus benefit. It may not be worth the risk.
Not worth the risk. Not sure about that one. Doctors are astounded that the former president has only just discovered that his cancer has spread to his bones. Why wasn't it caught before, and why wasn't he being tested? And where should Americans turn to for honest coverage about this? Maybe the mainstream media, the same people who told you a year ago this truth.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
you are
to
no
watch somebody on stage search for
It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me
and try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And isn't it amazing that Jake Tapper has no problem that he spent years straight up lying to the American people that there were no legitimate concerns over Biden's cognitive decline, is right now profiting from a book he's written, which is essentially about how Lara Trump was right. Jake Tapper has become a laughingstock, and so has CNN, for shamelessly promoting this bombshell book that he expects the American people to buy.
Breaking news in our politics lead and a brand new excerpt from my upcoming book with Axios' Alex Thompson. It's called Original Sin. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's on Biden's decline. It's called Original Sin. I'm sure you've heard on May 20th. That's Tuesday. Original Sin. That's coming out in 3 weeks. On May 20th. That's just 19 days away. In 1 week and 1 day. Coming out in just a few days. Comes out Tuesday. You will not believe what we found out.
Don't news people have to tell you what they know when they find it out? Isn't that the difference between news and a secret?
Wouldn't that be helpful if we had some real news from CNN? And Jon Stewart had another simple message for Jake Tapper.
Forgetting about the fact how weird it is that the news is selling you a book about news they should have told you was news a year ago for free.
He's not wrong. Sky News was one of the few places that was covering Biden's decline from the very beginning. And now Jake Tapper has reportedly hired a PR agency to try and help him spin his way through this media tour where, after being complicit in the Biden cover-up, which is one of the biggest political scandals of all time, he's now promoting his tell-all book, Original Sin, so he can sell as many books as possible. But this is quickly turning into an apology tour. Here he is getting absolutely grilled by Megyn Kelly.
Much attention outside of conservative media at all. And Alex and I are here to say that conservative media was right and conservative media was correct, and that there should be a lot of soul searching, not just among me, but among the legacy media to begin with, all of us, for how this was covered or not covered sufficiently. 100%. So, I mean, I'm not here to defend coverage that I've already acknowledged I wish I could do differently.
And although Jake Tapper has no issue with making money from a book that he's written after seriously misleading the American people when it mattered, it's somehow better than the type of commentary you get from watching The View, because hosts like Whoopi Goldberg insist that there's nothing to see here really when it comes to Biden's decline. We all have to move on. And other hosts try to suggest that Jake Tapper should be writing a book about Trump's mental acuity.
So should anonymous sources who talked to Tapper have spoken up about their concerns while he was in office, while he was still in office? And my other question is, why is this important to know now?
Yeah, well, that's what some people want to know.
It just seems to me,
yeah,
you know, we got a lot of stuff to be concerned about at the moment.
When is Jake Tapper going to write a book about the cognitive decline of the person who is in charge right now?
Parts of the mainstream media are absolutely delulu. Joining us now is newsroom editor at Unheard, James Billow. James, it's great to see you. There are, of course, no surprises that the hosts of The View just cannot handle covering the issue of Joe Biden's mental decline, and neither can Don Lemon. He wants the world to just move on and never look back.
People are saying this whole thing about was Joe Biden incapacitated mentally and all of that. I think America has moved on from that. I think America knows that Joe Biden was an old man. And whether he was selfish and all of those things, okay, that'll history books that will play out. I don't believe that if Joe Biden was in office, and look, I could be wrong, and that he had, known something like this or had cancer, I don't think that they would have kept it from the public. But I think the country's in another place now. The country has moved on, and the country is concerned really about the person who is in office now.
James, it's one of the biggest political scandals in history, yet hosts of The View and Don Lemon are just trying to desperately make it about Donald Trump.
I find the whole thing bizarre. I'm in America as we speak, and I can tell you quite emphatically, the country has not moved on by any stretch. And just as you think you get to the end of one news cycle about bad Biden news, you get another one, and then we have this cancer diagnosis. And we've had people like David Axelrod coming out and saying, well, perhaps we should mute the conversation a little bit. But actually, it reinforces it. It should amplify it even further, because just how ill and sickly was this poor man in office. And yes, Don Lemon is right. We knew he was an old man, but he was an old man who was the most powerful person in the world. And you just cannot sweep this kind of thing under the rug. And what scares me for the Biden family is that I'm sure there's going to be more to come after this. And this is only the beginning. So let's see how that pans out.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Let's talk about that cancer diagnosis. Again, sincerely hope that Joe Biden gets the best treatment possible, but there are so many questions around why his stage 4 cancer was not caught earlier. It's been revealed that his last known PSA test, this of course is a blood test used to screen for prostate cancer, was in 2014. That's rather convenient. Donald Trump says that his doctor needs to be questioned. Let's take a listen.
Given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think, to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there, and that's being proven to be a sad situation. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor, if it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors. Why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out.
James, when the American people have been lied to so many times about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, about the origins of COVID, about Hunter Biden's laptop, there are, of course, going to be pretty big questions about his cancer diagnosis too. Was this also a cover-up? Why wasn't he tested for it earlier? I mean, what's your take on all of this?
I completely agree. The level of deception we're seeing at every layer of this administration is just quite extraordinary. And to that point, you don't get to a Gleason score of 9 on cancer without any kind of prior knowledge to this disease. And the facts are, this is the most medically analyzed man in the planet. And as I'm sure Trump gets his his yearly physical, so was Joe Biden. It beggars belief that this wasn't caught, this wasn't spotted earlier. Now, what I suspect is that I know that the Biden campaign and his advisors are famously tight-lipped. They don't like anything get out. Now, we already knew that they were already trying to cover up his cognitive decline, his clear signs of infirmity that were coming through, particularly in those last 2 years of his presidency. And this is just another notch on that belt. And I really would not be surprised, as I mentioned before, that more stuff is going to be coming out. We should be prepared for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And there are also questions, well, there are certainly more questions than answers at this point. And the people around Joe Biden and his family really have a lot to answer for. You know, it was this time last year that Jill Biden was still campaigning for her husband to continue running in the election campaign. She was straight up lying to the American people that he was mentally fit. Now, we knew that that was a lie then. Everyone could see it, and we know for sure it was a lie now. But it's, of course, now been revealed that he wasn't properly tested for cancer in more than a decade. And now a DOJ official, Leo Terrell, has suggested that it is elder abuse, and that has even raised the question whether Jill Biden could face criminal charges. But he's not the only person kind of suggesting that Jill Biden should be charged with elder abuse. Washington Post columnist Sally Quinn also called out Jill Biden for pushing her husband to run for re-election despite his health problems. Look, I do think the people around Joe Biden who are spending the most time with him, encouraging him to run again, really have a lot to answer for.
I agree wholeheartedly. And we just had a story today about Joe Biden's top advisor, Mike Donald Long, getting paid something like $4 million when the next campaign manager was getting something like $300,000. So the level of cash that was flowing into these coffers was just quite extraordinary. And I completely agree. Jill Biden, Lady McBiden, was a central figure in all of this. She was really pushing her husband to run for that second election. And she probably knew better than anyone else, given her proximity to her husband, just what a bad state he was. And the fact that she kept pushing him on is just extraordinary. And I'll never forget what all these reports said the day after, or actually in the evening of that horrifying debate for Joe Biden. Jill Biden went rushing up to her husband saying, "Oh, what a great job you did. You knew all the facts. You're an absolute star out there." Completely disregarding what 350 other million Americans saw. And, you know, this level of self-delusion, I cannot understand why she put her husband through that, and I still can't.
Yeah, I'll never forget those scenes as well. It was painful to watch, actually, running up to her husband saying, "You answered all the questions." You know, it was just unbelievable. But there have been dramatic scenes at the White House today. Donald Trump invited South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to the White House and showed him a video of alleged violence against white South Africans. And this, of course, comes after the United States accepted around 50 white South African refugees. Now, the media is calling this an ambush. We know that Donald Trump is not a standard politician. A lot of people criticise the way he handles diplomacy. But what do you make of what unfolded today?
Well, this is exactly why people like Donald Trump, or at least, you know, half the country does. And it's for demonstrations exactly like this. He is going to surprise you in every way, shape or form, whether you like it or not. And he is the ultimate disruptor. He challenges the status quo. And you know what? He gets leaders thinking. He gets them off their feet and he surprises them. And, you know, this threat to South Africa, he has cut off all supply and all aid to them at the moment. The Cyril Ramaphosa came cap in hand asking for more support, and you know he was trying to go in this back and forth with some technological support and surveillance and preventing criminality in the country and stuff like that. And but Donald Trump likes to have these conversations in front of the camera. It's part of his transparent drive, and I think it's quite refreshing to see politicians behave like that, even if you don't necessarily agree with what he's saying. And that's just a fundamental part of his presidency.
Look, I agree with you. And he brought in evidence, he brought in the receipts, he brought in the video for everyone to see, and he's certainly good at highlighting certain issues. But Trump has also revealed that the United States will soon begin construction of a Golden Dome missile defence system that they say will be a game changer in protecting the American homeland. So, of course, this is a similar system to the Iron Dome in Israel, and it's expected to cost $175 billion. Trump says that he expects a major phase of the dome will be completed in less than 3 years. Let's take a listen.
People that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years.
James, what's the reaction been to this over in the States?
Well, I actually think this could be one of the defining achievements of his entire presidency, if he is able to pull this off. There's no question that this is a high-stakes gamble, and to try and replicate the Iron Dome over a country the size of Israel for something like the United States of America would be a colossal achievement. There's absolutely no question about that. What I like about this policy or this initiative is that it's very forward-facing, it's very future-facing. The future of warfare is not going to be happening on planet Earth. It is going to be happening in space. And we already see that China and Russia are developing these space-based technologies that can then strike America from wherever they are in the world. And I think Donald Trump is doing the exact right thing to find some kind of defensive system that can not only destabilize and push these sort of attacks away, but can respond in kind too. So again, it's part of this mantra, speak softly, carry a big stick. And Donald Trump is very much embodying that.
Okay, and the richest person in the world, Elon Musk, has revealed that he's going to be spending a lot less on political campaigns. We know that Elon, he made these comments via a video conference during a Bloomberg forum in Doha. Let's take a listen.
I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
Is it because of blowback?
Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
Elon Musk donated more than $250 million to Trump's campaign, and his comments come after all the work he's done establishing and leading Doge, which, although it hasn't reached its financial target yet, it has slashed $160 billion in federal spending. What do you make of Elon's comments? Is this a pretty big setback for the Republicans?
No, I think Elon is going back to doing what he does best, and that's managing his 17 or 18 companies or whatever. I think this is the best application of his skill set. And what he accomplished, particularly in Donald Trump's campaign, where, as you mentioned, that sort of $250 million plus infusion into the campaign really swung those states like places like Pennsylvania and the like. And it was actually the novelty of some of these innovations that he was using during those campaigns really got the grassroots going. And so I really don't think you can underestimate Elon Musk's contribution to Donald Trump's election campaign success. As for Doge, it's not over. It's going to carry on. Musk did say he's going to be there 2 days a week or something like that. But I do think this is a necessary divergence, and it was going to happen eventually. He still has to worry about Tesla, the Boring Company, and all the other ones. So we'll have to see how that all pans.
Yeah, it's phenomenal what's on his plate. Elon's also spoken about the legacy media and how it's been effective at making you believe things that simply aren't true. Let's listen to him.
My question is more about your work at Doge, for example. Was that worth it? You know, to the extent you are now, Elon, you were a somewhat divisive figure 2 years ago, but now you really are. I mean, there are people who love you, but there are a lot of people who dislike you, some of whom were your customers. And I wonder, was it worth the undertaking at Doge and everything else that you've done and how outspoken you've been in terms of the things you believe in to antagonize so many potential buyers and or users of things like a robo-taxi?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, what I've learned is that legacy media propaganda is very effective at making people believe things that aren't true.
What would an example of that be?
That I'm a Nazi, for example. Right. And how many legacy media publications, talk shows, whatever, try to claim that I was a Nazi because of some random hand gesture at a rally where all I said was that my heart goes out to you, and I was talking about space travel.
I think his comments about the legacy media are absolutely valid. What do you make of it?
Yeah, completely agree. But for anyone doubting Elon Musk for whatever reason, don't just take it from him. Take it from legacy media's very own Jake Tapper, who he himself said that, yes, the legacy media needs to ask itself some serious questions about why it was not covering the Biden second campaign in the same way that conservative media was, when there were clear signs of cognitive decline. So yes, I think this really, I'm hoping, will be a kind of watershed moment for legacy media where they do start having these conversations with themselves, particularly when one of its major stars is sticking his head above the parapet to talk about this. And I hope that going forward, although I'm admittedly not particularly optimistic about this, that there will be some changes in how they approach this, and maybe they'll even, dare I say it, hire some conservatives, but that's a long way away. maybe it's a bit of a pipe bomb.
One can hope. I really appreciate it. James Billow, newsroom editor at Unheard. Thanks so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thank you. Take care.
Joining us now from Melbourne is the Spectator Australia's Fire at Will podcast host, Will Kingston. Will, it's great to see you in Australia. Although you're in Melbourne, we have to start with what's going on in the UK. Last week, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer announced that his Labor Party is implementing tough new immigration laws with regards to work, family settlement and student visas. Now, in my opinion, this has nothing to do with his core values of keeping, borders secure, and has everything to do with the rise of Nigel Farage's party, Reform UK. Now, we know that Farage's popularity has absolutely skyrocketed. And now Keir Starmer is battling, within his own party against MPs, and the rest of the public is, quite sceptical about what he actually believes. So what's your take on all of this? Will Starmer's flip-flopping actually help him, or will people see right through it?
Gabriella, I agree with everything you just said, with one important amendment, and that is you made an assumption that Keir Starmer has core values, and I'm not sure that he does. Look, the problem is that you can't just take the public for idiots like this. When you have a record over a long period of time where you've been open borders, where you've been anti-Brexit, where you've been pro-multiculturalism, and suddenly, after you get absolutely hammered in local council elections and your party is facing an existential wipeout, you suddenly go to the right of Nigel Farage. So the problem is for him goes to credibility. No one believes him. In many respects, it was a strong speech, but it was a strong speech by a weak man, and everyone knows that he's a weak man when it comes to borders. So I don't think it will work. The latest polls have said that he is the second least popular Prime Minister, or has the second lowest number for favourability in recorded UK political history. I can't see it getting any better. If he can make a dent on the numbers of legal and illegal migration over a long period of time, don't forget that there is an election in 2029, maybe he can start to claw back that perception. But the fact of the matter is, no one believes him in the UK.
Yeah, and he set no real targets, so you can't really hold him accountable. So, it's an interesting one. But can you talk to us about Nigel Farage? He's had the momentum behind him for some time, but he's still dominating in the polls. Why is that?
Well, I go back to what you said about core values. I think he has a series of core values, and I think those values are aligned with the moment that the UK faces. So really, what he's just saying is that mass migration in the UK has changed the cultural fabric of the country, and this is now the #1 defining issue in the United Kingdom. It will be in Australia in years to come, by the way, but the UK has reached crisis point on it, and he is talking a big game on that. And also, he is playing into the fact that the Conservative Party have effectively squandered their recent time in office. They haven't come out strongly enough, really, to say that we are now a Conservative Party again, as opposed to the centrist or soft left party they have been. So he's just doing what a Conservative Party should say they should do on the tin. He's basically saying we're going to be pro-business, we're going to go back to a reduced migration, and we're going to have pride in the United Kingdom again. And I think there is a lesson in that for Australia as well, in that if you actually have a bit of gumption, if you have a bit of backbone, and you say, these are conservative values, we're not going to be cowed by the establishment media, we're not going to be cowed by other politicians who say we need to move to the centre, as is what we heard in the Australian election. There is a lane for you, but unfortunately it requires a charismatic leader, and it requires someone who has really strong political skills like Farage in order to do that. And there aren't many of those in Australia, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're absolutely right. Let's talk about free speech in the UK. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk posted on X today, if you want to renew your love of America, spend 3 days in the UK, you will kiss the ground when you get back home. And look, I bring that up because a mother who was jailed for a tweet that she posted after the Southport murders has now spoken out. Lucy Connolly was jailed for 31 months in October for posting a tweet. She was jailed for inciting racial hatred, and her appeal against her sentence has been dismissed. Will, can you bring us up to speed on what Lucy Connolly has had to say?
Yeah, so by way of context, the tweet that she did put out was distasteful. It was an awful thing to say. But again, we've all said awful things, and there was the important caveat that she said along the lines of, burn down all the migrant hotels for all I care. which for me and for most people with any common sense took it out of the realm of incitement to violence and into a political opinion. So she is now being perceived, I think rightly, as a political prisoner in the United Kingdom. She appealed that sentence, which was extraordinarily unjust. 31 months for that tweet, 31 months in prison. And unfortunately, the judge has said, no, you're going to have to serve every one of those, despite the fact that her husband is suffering from a range of different illnesses, and despite the fact that she has a young daughter. It is absolutely scandalous, particularly when you put it into the broader context of the United Kingdom, where you're seeing rapists getting their sentences cut early, where you're seeing less sentences for actual crimes, for physical crimes, for punching someone in the street, for doing real damage. But unfortunately, those 4 crimes are now punished in many instances more seriously than actual crimes in the country. And the last thing I'll say on this, Gabriella, is that's in a broader context, to Charlie's point, where freedom of speech is under assault. 30 people each day are arrested in the United Kingdom for things they have said online. Now, again, this is A, not what should be done in a Western liberal democracy, but B, it doesn't work. It doesn't mean that you get less Nazi sentiment or less fascist sentiment or whatever. It just drives that or inflames that even more. So this is a very sad, dark day for the United Kingdom, and it needs free speech advocates to stand up and say this is just not on.
Let's talk about what's happening in the United States this week, as Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book Original Sin, detailing the Democrats' elaborate cover-up of President Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Joe Biden has revealed that he has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, of course, I've said it many times, it's so sad, and he absolutely deserves the best treatment. But there are so many questions, Will, around the timing of this, why he wasn't properly tested for 10 years. What were the people around him doing? Who knew what and when? And, you know, as we've been lied to so many times by the Democratic Party, by Joe Biden himself, he said he wasn't going to pardon Hunter, then he did pardon Hunter. There was COVID. There have been so many lies coming out from Joe Biden and the people around him. What's your reaction hearing this news? Were you sceptical about the timing, about why we're just learning about this right now?
Just a bit sceptical, Gabriella, yeah. The fact of the matter is the former Biden White House and the Democratic Party do not deserve the benefit of the doubt on this. And the fact of the matter is none of it makes any sense. I think this will rightfully come to be revealed as the greatest political scandal in modern American history. There's only 3 things that could have happened here. Either A, they knew about the cancer when he was president and they lied about it. They deliberately withheld it from the public. B, they did not test him for prostate cancer, which is a really easy test. It's a test that Obama got, who was in better shape than Biden. It's a test that Trump gets. It is a common test for blokes over the age of 50, and they chose not to do that, which would be gross medical negligence. Or the third option, which I think is actually the most likely, which is the Biden White House or Jill Biden basically said, do not give him this test because we're afraid of what we will see and we will have to not disclose it. Yeah. But whichever one of those that you choose to believe, they are all a political scandal almost without equal. So questions need to be asked. It is interesting that the Democrats are coming out and saying, well, now that he's sick, we can't have this conversation. We need to hold back. Absolutely not. This needs to be investigated because this goes to the very heart of the so-called democracy that Democrats claim to love so much but have done so much to trash.
Absolutely. Will Kingston, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Welcome back to Australia.
Thanks, Gabriella.
Joining us now is retired CIA Operations Officer and Senior Vice President of Strategic Risk and Intelligence at Continental Strategy, Rick De La Torre. Rick De La Torre, thank you for joining us on Power Hour. Let's start with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And the US is awaiting a proposal from Russian President Vladimir Putin that may lead to a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Secretary Marco Rubio says that he does think Putin will cut a deal.
We can all agree on. There is no military solution to this crisis. Right. It will have to end in a negotiated settlement. And the fundamental challenge we have in Ukraine is this. Russia wants what they do not currently have and are not entitled to, and Ukraine wants what they cannot regain militarily. And that's been the crux of the challenge.
What's your assessment of where things are at the moment? Do you think there is enough evidence that Putin is willing to bring this war to an end?
I
I think the jury's still out on that one, really. I think what we witnessed in the past couple of days is really that Trump did something that other administrations had not done, and that is he didn't seek permission from NATO or the EU or the UN. He just picked up the phone, gave a telephone call to Putin, and had that kind of conversation that we generally want from leaders. This is what peace through strength looks like when two leaders having a real conversation, not performative posturing, not endless summits where nothing gets done. Trump is doing what Biden never did or could. He's asserting U.S. leadership and testing whether peace is actually on the table. Now, he's not naive about Putin. Putin, he's also not willing to drag America through another endless war, though, just to satisfy defense contractors or NATO bureaucrats. If Putin's serious, we'll see Trump get some results, and if not, Putin will face increased pressure from the U.S. in the form of serious sanctions.
We've also heard from Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. He's accused Russia of trying to buy time to continue the war in Ukraine. He says that Russia is putting forward unrealistic conditions and must face tough consequences. But Russia maintains it is willing to participate in negotiations. What do you make of Zelensky's comments?
I think he's playing the media and the news correctly, as he should be, right? He's calling Putin's bluff. He's saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm ready to negotiate. Come along, Putin. Let's go with it." And sadly, the more Putin drags this out, the worse it does look for him in the eyes of others. They are confirming a lot of the biases that those in Europe and many here in the United States have.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has revealed that Pope Leo had confirmed during a phone call with her his willingness to host in the Vatican the next round of negotiations to try and bring the Russia and Ukraine war to an end. What's your response to this?
Look, I think that's fine, as long as it's not just for show. This administration, the United States, Trump, supports diplomacy, but only if it leads somewhere, right? If Pope Leo wants peace, well, that's great, but peace without pressure is just performance, right? If Trump's team shows up, it'll be with leverage, not platitudes. So no more empty declarations, no more moral grandstanding. Real diplomacy means consequences for bad actors and results for the people that are paying the bills. The Vatican can certainly host the table, but Trump's team needs to bring the muscle that's required to make something stick at these peace talks.
I want to talk to you about Joe Biden. You've written about his cancer diagnosis and you say that stage 4 doesn't just sneak up on a sitting president surrounded by round-the-clock care, daily briefings and the most comprehensive medical infrastructure on the planet. Either they knew and they hid it or they were too incompetent to even notice. And after years of watching Biden stumble, mumble and disappear from the public eye, the "we didn't know" excuse doesn't pass the laugh test. So let's stop pretending that Joe Biden was ever truly in charge. So that is the real question. Who was in charge? And Rick, was it his staff? What do you think?
Well, I know his presidency was simply theater. He was a figurehead, the comforting symbol for a party that didn't want leadership. It wanted control. The real decisions came from the back rooms, the activists, handlers, unelected bureaucrats, and the media allies who exist to clean up his messes. Every gaffe was brushed off, right? Every moment of confusion that we witnessed was downplayed. Every bad decision, from Afghanistan to inflation, all those were just spun by the press corps that had already stopped asking the real questions and just became part of the PR machine. So Biden wasn't leading the country. He was reading a teleprompter written by the people who actually were. And the American people saw through it as we went into the election. And that's one of the reasons why Democrats did so poorly in the past election. Joe Biden was a cardboard presidency. Someone else wrote the script, and he just read it.
Yeah, and we saw that time and time again, yet we're still finding out more about this cover-up. It's been revealed that millions of dollars were spent on a fake town hall, and Biden's performance was actually so bad that nothing could be used from it. Listen to this.
But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. So they took 90 minutes, 2 hours out of the president's day. They filmed an entire town hall, and they determined that it was not usable. Now, some people say this was because Joe Biden was incoherent. He could not really articulate his thoughts in a pithy or even semi-normal way. Some people just said, like, the lighting was bad. That was sort of the 2 points of view. But the point is, it shows how what the campaign status was in the spring of 2024 when they were trying to, deal with a candidate that wasn't a decline.
Wait, someone told you the lighting was bad?
It really just highlights how many people were in on this cover-up.
Yeah, the lighting was bad. Yeah, let me put it this way. When a former president cancels a national television town hall and with less than 24 hours notice, it's not because of scheduling conflicts or bad lighting. It's because the inner circle knows what the rest of us already knew, that Biden's no longer capable of handling unscripted pressure, not even in a controlled environment like an apologetic and supportive CNN stage. And what's the reason that they could give you? Well, he was sick, or he wasn't feeling well. Really, yeah, I'm not so sure, right? We're told that he's the same guy who supposedly ran the country during COVID without a scratch, and suddenly he can't sit for an hour worth of questions. So this wasn't about a cold or the lighting or whatever. This was about control. His team pulled the plug because they couldn't risk him going off script again, right? Because this had been continuing on for a couple of years. And now we've got the book Original Sin, written by one of the CNN anchors and authors with Axios, which is starting to quote unquote leak what we all saw, what we already knew. Some of the same folks, like in this case, Jake Tapper, he was the one that was making excuses for Joe Biden during those years.
breaking this bliss down, getting my residuals, moving like Chris Brown. New Evan, ayo, from now on, they said I was done, but they ain't saying shit now. I be up them tables, breaking this bliss down, getting my residuals, moving like Chris Brown. I keep it original, you know how my shit sound. I'm way more mature, but I ain't put the blick down. They looking like, wow, this nigga say blick now? Not really, motherfucker, it just rhymes with Chris Brown. When I come around, they all gonna skip town like they owe me money, or tried to Obi-Wan me. Then I went Anakin, now they all panicking. You could be perfectly dressed, it won't make you a man again. You don't even smell the kind of shit that you standing in. Jumped out the window, don't know what you landed in. Cop blocking motherfuckers made me switch up the plan again. Okay, guess what? Nigga, I was built for this. I was born for this. They won't admit that they watch me like a porno flick. The rap game is a toilet. I be on some shit. I'm beyond your shit and all that other corny shit. Me in the game on some holy matrimony shit. This my anniversary, some Tony shit. Load the clip, do a spin. Grab my dick on some Michael Jackson shit. Nueve.